What's good? It's Woog. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. We have Jose Pedraza, 29 wins and 4 losses, taking on Richard Commey, 30 wins and 4 losses. This is a battle at 140. Both of these guys are former champions. Jose Pedraza is actually a 2-time former champion. Once at 130 and then at 135 lightweight. Richard Commey is a former belt holder at 135. He held the IBF title for a moment. Now, neither of these guys are ranked in the top 10, like according to Ring Magazine. In the division, this is actually Richard Commey's debut at 140. Jose Pedraza has pretty much been fighting at 140 since his loss to Vasily Lomachenko in late 2018. So for the past few years, Pedraza's been at 140. He hasn't seen the same success at 140 that he did at 130 and 135, but he's been pretty successful. I mean, his only 2 losses at 140 so far have been against Jose Zepeda and Jose Ramirez, both of which are currently, ranked around like the top 5 in the division, especially Jose Ramirez. Jose Ramirez is a former unified champion. He was a WBO and WBC champ, and then he fought Josh Taylor for undisputed. Now, the good news for both Pedraza and Commey is that they are both with Top Rank, so the path to securing a title shot or a title opportunity is pretty good. Top Rank is very strong at 140. Not only do they have Josh Taylor, who still holds 2 of the 4 belts. Again, he used to be undisputed champion with all 4 belts, but he's been hemorrhaging championship belts over the past, few months in his pursuit for a rematch with Jack Catterall, who he had beaten via controversial decision. So Josh Taylor went from having 4 belts, now has 2 belts, but those 2 belts, again, are still on the Top Rank side. And what is likely to be the battle for the WBC belt is going to be fought between Jose Zepeda, who's on Top Rank, and Regis Prograis. It's only the WBA belt that's outside of the Top Rank ecosystem. So there are basically multiple paths to a title opportunity, and this fight between Pedraza and Richard Commey might have title shot implications. We'll see. But again, it also helps that both of them are former title holders. Now, Jose Pedraza is a southpaw, sweet scientist, a very quote-unquote slick fighter. He's out of Puerto Rico, and again, he was the IBF 130-pound champion, and he had done that by beating Andrei Klimov for the vacant 130-pound belt, defended it successfully a couple times, and then ran into a young Gervonta Davis in January of 2017. Gervonta Davis basically beat him up over the course of a few rounds, stopped him in the 7th round. That was a very tough fight for Pedraza. That was his first professional loss. And till this day, that's his only stoppage loss. His only other 3 losses in his career have been via decision to Lomachenko, where he lost his 135-pound title. That was a belt that he won off of Ray Beltran, who Richard Commey has also beaten. Richard Commey actually stopped Beltran, but that was about a year after Jose Pedraza beat Beltran via decision. So Pedraza's other losses outside of getting stopped by Gervonta Davis in 2017 were via decision to Lomachenko. Again, Pedraza lost his WBO belt in that title unification fight. Lomachenko came in with the WBA belt. And then Pedraza lost to Jose Zepeda. This was in 2019. And then in his very last fight against Jose Ramirez in March of 2022. So again, Pedraza has a reputation of being a very technically sound fighter. He's tricky with the movement and again with the southpaw stance. He keeps a very active lead hand. He's pretty good at managing distance, managing range, especially in the first half of the fight. I have concerns about his ability to manage range as he gets more tired. Jose Ramirez started tracking him down and started putting a beating on him, especially during the second half of their fight. But, it's one of those you can run, but you can't hide when it comes to fighting Jose Ramirez. He's very good at cutting the ring off. Now, Richard Commey is a very hard puncher. He's going to definitely be the harder puncher between these two. And he's got an especially devastating right hand. His biggest wins to date, I would say, are against, as I mentioned, Ray Beltran, and then maybe against Jackson Marinez. That was a 6-round knockout that Commey earned in February of 2021. Now, Commey, as I mentioned, is a former title holder at 135, but he had challenged for a belt a couple years prior to that. So he won the belt against Isa Chimaev in 2019, but he had challenged Robert Easter Jr. for the vacant IBF lightweight belt back in September of 2016. He fought a very good fight with the very good fighter, Robert Easter Jr., very tall, long for the division, and Robert Easter Jr. pulled out a split decision win against Richard Commey. So Commey lost that close fight to Easter, then lost his very next fight, also by split decision. That's 2 back-to-back split decision losses. That one came against Denis Shafikov. So that's obviously a big setback, losing back-to-back fights, rough for the Ghanaian fighter. By the way, Ghana, rich boxing history, legacy, featuring former greats like Azuma Nelson, Ike Quartey, Isaac Dogbe, most recently. A lot of very good fighters have come out of Ghana. Joshua Clottey. But yeah, Richard Commey, Ghanaian fighter, had those back-to-back losses, but then he went on an excellent run, which eventually led to another title shot opportunity, and that again was against Isa Chimaev, and this was in February 2019, and Richard Commey looked outstanding in this fight. He dropped him in the first round and then dropped him twice more in the second round. Second round TKO victory for Richard Commey, secures the IBF lightweight title. That was definitely one of his career highlights. And then in his very next fight, defended that title successfully against, again, a pretty good fighter in Ray Beltran, stopped him in the 8th round, dropped him multiple times. Seriously, if you can't figure out how to deal with his right hand, you're in for a world of hurt, and he could make it a pretty short night. Ray Beltran is kind of a come forward style fighter, which was somewhat tailor-made for Richard Commey's style. Out of his 30 wins, he being Commey, out of his 30 wins, 27 of those wins have come via knockout. So that should tell you something about his punching power. But after stopping Beltran, his next title defense came against a young Teofimo Lopez. And Teofimo Lopez beautifully set up an overhand right hand. And Teofimo Lopez, when he's on his game, is brilliant at setting up his power punches. We'll see if he could return 100% to top form. But at his best, he is a patient and crafty fighter who's looking to set up the big shots, and boy did he against Richard Commey. And this was a major step-up fight for the very young Teofimo Lopez. So that was basically the fight that Teofimo Lopez had that set up the showdown, the eventual showdown between Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez, where Lopez would then shock the boxing world by beating Lomachenko via decision. By the way, when Pedraza lost to Lomachenko in 2018, this is also when Lomachenko was battling pretty much an ongoing shoulder injury. A lot of people think that Lomachenko might have stopped Pedraza if it wasn't for that, but we really have no way of telling if that's the case. Now, after that Teofimo Lopez knockout over Richard Commey, Commey was out of the ring for like over a year because he had lost that title again in December 2019. So then COVID hit a couple months later, and then he went the whole 2020 without one fight, ends up re-entering the ring in February of 2021 against the very slick Jackson Marinez, who has had a pretty rough go. He's lost like 3 fights recently. And the first of those 3 losses was a controversial loss where most viewers thought that Jackson Marinez deserved a decision win against Raleigh Romero, but they gave the decision to Romero. Well, after that, Jackson Marinez fights Richard Commey in February of 2021, and Richard Commey stops Marinez in the 6th round. And one thing about Richard Commey, he is a knockout artist, but he's not one of these feast or famine knockout artists who's reliant on the knockout. In a lot of his fights, he's winning majority of the rounds that then lead to a knockout. But it's not like he's either dropping you or losing the round. So he's not just a brute who's looking for the big shot. He does have some boxing ability. Like when he beat Beltran, he was winning rounds against Beltran before stopping Beltran. Same thing with his win against Jackson Marinez. Again, a sweet science guy. Marinez is pretty slick. Richard Commey was winning rounds against Marinez before knocking him out in the 6th round. Now, Marinez was winning some rounds too, but with Richard Commey's pressure style, you got the feeling watching the fight that, damn, I don't know how much longer Jackson Marinez can control range against Commey, because Commey is looking to set up his shots, but he's got a really hard jab. He throws a nice left hook as well. But again, he's looking to line you up for that right hand, and he caught Jackson Marinez several times before stopping him in the 6th round. And then Richard Commey has the fight against Vasily Lomachenko. So this was after Lomachenko lost to Teofimo Lopez. Lomachenko then has a return fight against Nakatani. He obliterates, beats the hell out of Nakatani. Nakatani, I don't think he's been in the ring since. But then after that, Lomachenko takes on Richard Commey in December of 2021. By the way, it sounds like Lomachenko's about to return to the ring against Jermaine Ortiz. That might be interesting, but we'll analyze that fight later. But Lomachenko fights Commey in December of 2021. I thought this fight would be interesting, and Lomachenko basically had his way with Richard Commey. Like when he being Lomachenko is getting into his rhythm, into his flow, it just looks like his opponent is surrounded by Lomachenko. And Richard Commey had to show all the heart in the world to go the distance in this one. He took a beating. And again, this was December 2021. So it's no mystery as to why Richard Commey has taken basically 8-9 months before returning to the ring. He took a thorough beating against Lomachenko. Yes, he did hang in there. Yes, he was able to land some shots. Wasn't really able to land the shots that he wanted, the most meaningful shots that he was throwing. Wasn't able to land those, but he was trying to put his head down and grind and dig and throw punches and try to do something to disrupt Lomachenko. He didn't have a lot of success in doing it. Lomachenko pretty much cruised to a pretty brutal decision win against Richard Commey. So this is Richard Commey's first fight back, and again, he's taking on Jose Pedraza. So what do I expect between the sniper, Jose Pedraza, and Richard Commey making his 140-pound debut? Well, traditionally, you would go with a Jose Pedraza style fighter. He's a southpaw, and it looks like his bag of tricks should give Richard Commey all types of problems to have to work through. The problem is, I think with Jose Pedraza, especially now at 35 years old, he is kind of unable to maintain his, movement and his technical ability in the later rounds. Like we saw him kind of get broken down against Jose Ramirez, where Ramirez was taking majority of the middle and late rounds. I think all three judges had it 8 rounds to 4 for Jose Ramirez. Now, Richard Commey hasn't proven to be the destructive force at 140 that we know Jose Ramirez to be, but we know that Commey hits hard. It's going to be, it's yet to be determined how formidable he's going to ultimately be at 140. And Pedraza and Commey's heights and reaches are nearly even. They're both roughly 5'8", 5'8 and a half, and they both have 71 or 70 and a half inch reaches. Both height and reach very close. So I think that Pedraza is going to give Commey some trouble early. I think that he's probably going to win, let's say, 3 out of the first 5 rounds or something like that. And this fight, by the way, is a 12-rounder. So this isn't like a 10-round fight where even if Pedraza starts to break down, that it's a 10-round fight so he could still win 6 rounds to 4 without having to fight those championship rounds. No, this is a 12-rounder. So I think that Pedraza is going to probably win the slight majority of the first half of the fight. Now, he could also get hit and rocked and even drop. Again, Commey has pretty brutal punching power, but I think Pedraza is well schooled enough to stay out of the way of Richard Commey's biggest right hands, right? I think that his defensive ability is at least going to keep him out of that type of harm's way. He wasn't able to avoid Gervonta Davis, granted, and that was way back in 2017. So once you start kind of beating Pedraza up, he stops being able to move so effectively. He's not so elusive at that point. He starts to sit down and engage in a lot more of the phone booth style fight. We've seen it against Jose Zepeda. We've seen it against Lomachenko. We've seen it against Jose Ramirez. Even against Gervonta Davis, Pedraza obliged and started having to sit, mostly because Gervonta Davis was kind of beating the movement out of him. But even in some of Pedraza's wins, like against Ray Beltran, he had to oblige and start to fight the more, phone booth style fight, especially late in the fight. I think Commey is going to make Pedraza eventually have to acquiesce and fight a more of a puncher's style fight. And I think that Richard Commey is going to be the stronger fighter in the middle and late rounds, to where I believe Richard Commey, check it out. A couple days ago, I was actually leaning Pedraza via decision. I thought he could win like a 7 rounds to 5, 8 rounds to 4 type of decision against Richard Commey, because he is the slightly more technical boxer, and because he's a southpaw, because he's tricky, all of those things. But because of his lack of movement, in the second half of fights, I think Commey is actually going to come on strong, win the majority of the rounds, and I think that Richard Commey will be the one to edge a split decision, majority decision, where one judge might have it a draw and the other two go Commey, or one judge has it Pedraza, but then it's overruled by the other two judges going Richard Commey's way. I think Richard Commey is actually going to be the one to edge the decision. And I think that some of that is going to be because as Pedraza starts to get tired and is going to be the one who more likely starts to wilt a bit, I think that him looking like he's trying to get away from Commey and then looks like he has to be forced into a fight rather than a boxing match exhibition looking fight, I think that that's going to sway the judges, as it's going to look like Commey is the one who's seizing control and becoming the initiator, the aggressor in the fight. And I think that Pedraza's movement is actually going to start lessening before you get into the late rounds. I'm talking maybe by round 5, round 6, depending on how active Commey's jab is in setting up his big shots and how well Richard Commey might be able to cut the ring off and let combinations go against Pedraza. So I'm actually going to go with Richard Commey winning his 140-pound debut against, again, a multi-divisional belt holder in Jose Pedraza. But yeah, let me know what you think about Pedraza versus Richard Commey. This is one of those very good yet non-title fights. And I'm glad that they made this one a 12-rounder and not a 10-rounder. Top Rank really, again, has it going on at 140. And this just gives them 2 more contenders to work with when deciding who's going to be able to fight against, the winner of Prograis versus Zepeda, if they do indeed make that fight. Or, Josh Taylor versus Jack Catterall, the winner of that. I think that one of these 2 guys, along with, obviously, Jose Ramirez as well. In fact, I think that because he was supposed to be in line for the vacant WBA title shot, Prograis was then replacing Ramirez because Ramirez basically had wedding plans and couldn't fight Zepeda for that vacant WBA belt. So I think he's actually going to be next in line, and he'll be facing the winner of Prograis and Zepeda. But yeah, outside of that, I think that one of these 2 guys is going to be in the running for a title shot sooner rather than later. But yeah, let me know what you think about Pedraza versus Commey in the comments. And please, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.